For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
Welcome into the first episode of Mammoth Daily here in the year of our Lord 2026. It is January 5th, a Monday, and we'll get to our Monday morning power play here in a little bit. We'll get to a preview of tonight's game between the Utah Mammoth and the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. I am in New York, got boots on the ground here in the Empire State. Adrian, you are back in Utah. We are your Hockey Night in Utah radio crew, Mike Fulta and Adrian Denny. Got a couple weeks off, AD. Missed being in the groove with Mammoth Daily. It was nice to step away from the mic for a little bit, but gosh, I had people coming up to us at the Delta Center saying, "What the heck, guys? We thought you were day-to-dayers. We thought you were punching that clock. We didn't know that you guys were going to take like 4 weeks of PTO here in the middle of the year."
I don't think we ever specified that we're corporate America day-to-dayers, and that comes with a Christmas vacation. But it was a long time, Mike. Last show was December 23rd before that Colorado game. It seems like a really, really long time ago, but I think everybody that stopped by to see us on Monday night against Nashville enjoyed a little bit of Mammoth Daily in person and kind of got that appetite a little whetted for this Monday and realized, yeah, this is why I miss the show so much. But glad to be back with everybody. And the way the holidays just kind of fell this year, they were just in the middle of the week, and the way the broadcast calendar laid out. Copycat League saw our favorite morning shows in Salt Lake, Radio from Hell, Dave and Deb, going on these 3-week-long holiday vacations, and it seemed like, okay, let's that's the prudent thing to do in morning drive podcasting. So off we go, but we're back and happy to be back.
Happy to be back as well. And that Christmas break did not come with a Christmas bonus, in case you were wondering. It did come with an enrollment to the Jelly of the Month Club. However, for our Christmas vacation fans out there, you'll understand that reference. But AD, we're going to be back with everybody. Normal scheduled programming here the rest of the way through the season. So Monday through Friday, and right here on YouTube, if you're watching on the team YouTube page or wherever you're getting your podcast. As always, and as we open 26, we want to thank you for everyone who's been with us through 2025. You helped get us promoted to the team channel. It's fantastic. We ask that you continue to subscribe and leave a rating to the show. That helps us, and it helps us keep track of how we're doing. It lets us know what people like and what people don't like as well, so we can continue to bring everybody around this table, this feast of Utah Mammoth hockey. As we sit right now, Mammoth coming off a 4-1 loss at the hands of the New Jersey Devils. Utah has stubbed its toe against Sheldon Keefe's Devils 4 times now in 4 games dating back to last year. But we turn the page and are at Madison Square Garden today to take on a New York Rangers team that is fresh off of a 5-1 win at the Winter Classic against the defending Stanley Cup Florida Panthers. And Adrian, it was a strange visual watching the game and then having the ESPN cameras cut away to, or the TNT cameras cut away to Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov, 2 active players dancing with the Stanley Cup while their teammates are playing. But it was all in the name of good fun and of creating a Miami-style party, I suppose. I thought it was a fun visual to watch on TV. I was at a New York sports bar watching it. I couldn't hear everything, but it looked great on the screen.
And I like the outdoor games going to Florida. We got a Stadium Series game coming up in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium with the Lightning. But Florida's been a huge part of the growth of the National Hockey League. And both teams have 2 Stanley Cup championships in the last 5 seasons. And it was well received in South Florida. And they've they've embraced the Miami Vice identity of it. As you saw the teams arriving at the stadium, both teams arriving in the same themed costumes. That's a fun part of the outdoor game is the themes entering it. But it wasn't Buffalo, New York in '08 in a blinding snowstorm. It was South Florida, and Mike, the roof was open, and it was a great day for a hockey game in South Florida. The Rangers went in, Mike, and they beat the Florida Panthers by a count of 5-1. New York team that all season long has been trying to get going, kind of like Utah since October, trying to get that stretch of consistency rolling, and they're going to try and make it 2 straight games tonight against the Mammoth back home at Madison Square Garden, where they've struggled, but they're hoping that 5-1 victory on Friday night can propel them into 2026 and a good little run here. Mike Sullivan saying they were hard to play against, and if you can be a hard team to play against the Florida Panthers, that's a pretty good sign. Rangers have struggled at home this year. We all know that, right? Been shut out 5 times at home. They're 5-10-3 at MSG. Only played at home 5 times during the month of December, so not a huge sample size as of recent at home for the Rangers, who are home for a pair against Utah and Buffalo here this week.
Yeah, and as usual, the sky is falling for a lot of Rangers fans. They're 7th in the Metro right now, still have technically that winning division, but we've been saying it all year whenever Utah plays an Eastern Conference team, really everybody is still in the mix in the Eastern Conference. It's just so tight. Western Conference, a little bit like that, but not nearly to the degree that it is out east. And I've never seen a team get shut out 5 times at home in their first 7 home games. I mean, that's been part of the reason why Rangers fans here in this great city are so up in arms with this year's team, because every time they go to a game, it seems like their team is unable to score, which is frustrating considering you have guys like Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller, who you see pictured if you're watching on YouTube. Miller is dressed in the Winter Classic uniforms that New York rolled out against Florida. Miller didn't even play in that game. He's probably not going to play against Utah. He's been dealing with an injury and is still week to week, last we heard. He did not play in the last meeting between these two teams when Utah beat New York 3-2 back at the Delta Center in November. And Adrian, that was a big moment for the Mammoth in their season, I feel like, because up to that point, Utah had stretched together a few games where they weren't playing the way they felt like they needed to win games. And sure, they beat a New York team that wasn't necessarily at the top of the standings, but they play the way they needed to, and they got some of those dirty goals in the interior, which is something they had been lacking up to that point in the season.
It was kind of right after their scared straight moment of the year, which was that November 20th game against Vegas, in which Utah lost 5-1. And, to that point, the Mammoth weren't winning a lot, but they were in games. They were all close games, had a chance to win all of them. And then that Vegas game that was scoreless after 1, and then all of a sudden 5 minutes into the second was 2-0 and ended 5-1. It kind of led the Mammoth to okay, this isn't working and we need to change some stuff. And it kind of led to that monumental practice day that we had at Southtown on the Friday, where we all kind of walked in wondering, where is the world going to go from here? And left feeling a lot better about it, and felt even better after watching the Mammoth the next night beat the Rangers in a game where they took the lead, fell behind, tied it, and ultimately won it.
Yeah, that was after a 2-9 stretch. So that was Utah really struggling after the 7-game win streak, and the Mammoth went 2-9, and they're coming off that 4-game losing streak. Now, I say losing, they lost in overtime in 3 of those 4 games, but hadn't won in 4 straight. And then got back to work in what was kind of a no-nonsense work boot mentality game. I think that's what Utah would like to get back to. We heard from head coach Andre Tourney talking about the game in New Jersey and how the Mammoth weren't as good around the net, how Jacob Markstrom was able to see a majority of the shots cleanly that Utah sent on net, and they'd like to go to the net and get some better traffic in front and win some of those positioning battles. Not just the stick battles, but the positioning battles with your skate and your hips and your body to get to the goaltender's eyes and make things difficult. And goaltending wise, it's probably not going to get any easier tonight. We expect Igor Shesterkin to start. We expect Igor Shesterkin to start every game for the New York Rangers. He leads the league in games played, and he's been really the only bright spot, you could say, this year for New York. And this is not a team that's elite defensively in front of Shesterkin, and yet they're the sixth best defensive team in terms of goals against. And that's much in part to their superstar goaltender, who I think, the MVP race is what it is. It's become a points race a lot of years, even though I know it was Hellebuck last year. But Igor Shesterkin, you can make the argument, is the most valuable player to his team, because without him, and I know Jonathan Quick has good numbers in small sample sizes, but without Igor Shesterkin, it's hard to imagine this New York team being anywhere close to 500.
I think we've seen it in the first two games of this trip, a goalie take a game over. Karel Vejmelka did it on Long Island. Jacob Markstrom did it on Saturday in New Jersey, allowing just one goal to the Mammoth in a game, Mike, that analytically was pretty close. I know we saw what we saw, and the Mammoth had a good first 5 minutes, and then a couple of the things that Andre Turdy talked about after the game Thursday on Long Island that won Utah the game management situations weren't controlled how they were, and before you knew it, New Jersey was up 2-0, and then after 20 minutes of being 2-0, it was 4-0. But Jacob Markstrom made pivotal saves in that game, especially early. So Utah is again going to go up against a goalie that can steal a game. And anytime you see Igor Shesterkin, it was Jonathan Quick last time Utah played the Rangers on Saturday, November 22nd. So you get Shesterkin, who Utah scored 6 against, the only other visit they've made to MSG. But just seeing that name, seeing that guy lead them out for warmups, makes you think, okay, we need to do all that stuff we talk about and getting to the interior and scoring goals, because he can take games and make his team win them.
We brought this up, and I want to go back to Winter Classic since we're talking about New York here. But you had brought up the question: what would Utah's outfit be rolling into a Winter Classic? Because we see at these Winter Classics, like what we saw a few days ago in Miami, the Panthers roll up in the Miami Vice uniforms or outfits, I should say. They got the suits with the light colored T-shirts underneath. What would that be in Utah? I don't know. Maybe like ski gear, ski equipment, or like you show up like you're ready for the slopes, maybe?
You could. You've seen teams show up like in Red Sox uniforms, like when they're playing at Fenway Park, when they're playing at Wrigley as the Cubs. One of my thoughts was embracing the Wild West, maybe a little bit.
Ooh,
embracing the pioneer heritage. If you walk into a respective college football stadium as one team, then 50% of the state's going to be upset at you. So, but if they're hosting it, maybe it's more accepted.
You're telling me if it's at Rice Eccles and the Mammoth walk in as the BYU Cougars, that wouldn't go over well?
Or as the Utes, the folks down in the south end of the valley in Utah County might not be as thrilled about that. So maybe we keep it a little more neutral. You can't really go with Jazz because you play in the same building as them every night. You've done the Jazz theme, but I kind of like. I don't think anybody's ever done Wild West. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and all that stuff.
Bring back the Outlaws. All the Outlaw voters would be enthused.
That's great.
Yes, you can satiate them. What if we came in as Yeti? Like everybody wanted the Utah Yeti. What if it was everybody walked in like these big white Yeti suits? Or how about this? We keep it on the prehistoric theme and have Karel Vejmelka lead the charge dressed up as some kind of dinosaur. Maybe he's got they've got like the inflatable dinosaur costumes you could wear, or I don't know.
You could ride
bones
right
around
on in
it.
with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of directions we could go. If you have an idea, like make sure to let us know in the YouTube comments. But that we covered a lot of ground there. I think the marketing team should talk to us.
They should always talk to us. We know they listen, and we appreciate our VP of marketing, Lisa, listening to Mammoth Daily every day on her day to work. She says sometimes we go a little long, and she only has like a 20-minute commute, so she's got to cut us off at some point. But yeah, I'm sure Lisa's just thrilled to hear all of our ideas on this and everything else we toss out there that's just so easy to handle.
Well, the Kraken got a Winter Classic in their third season. They were in the 2024 Winter Classic. So that would mean like next year would be obviously Utah's third season. So you would think, or you would hope that the Mammoth are at least in that conversation for next year's Winter Classic. And we've heard Gary Bettman kind of vaguely toss out these inclinations that Utah would be a site there. They want to do a Winter Classic at some point. I think it'd be a slam dunk to promote the game in this new spot. And these outdoor games always seem to be home runs wherever they're done, even as we've seen at South Beach. So fingers crossed for an announcement indicating Salt Lake or somewhere in Utah is the next Winter Classic. But if the pattern follows what it was in Seattle, we'll get the next one.
Bring it on. Weather's always great for an outdoor game here in Salt Lake, but Florida pulled it off. Their weather in South Florida has been kind of up and down. They've had some freezing temperatures and then it got warmer, but great showing from Florida. No ice issues there. We've seen ice issues in places that you wouldn't expect. South Lake Tahoe, Chicago, Boston, Denver, I think. So
yeah.
You just never know with Mother Nature playing hockey outside.
Yeah, credit to the ice people in Florida for getting that right. That's an incredible feat in and of itself. But I saw a lot of people throwing shade at the event being in Florida. People trying to gatekeep the Winter Classic. Oh, it should always be in a cold weather state. Like, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's good to try new things and to keep pushing the envelope, especially in markets where the game is crescendoing with the championship runs of Tampa and Florida. Like, you have to capitalize on that momentum if you're the league. And that means bringing in, different types of intermission shows and different types of entertainment that's maybe outside of your core fan base's interests. Like, growing the game is important, and the most successful leagues in the world can do that. And if the NHL wants to continue to grow, you have to continue to be aggressive and push the envelope. And that means taking risks. And I thought they took a risk at Miami, and I thought from what I saw on the screen, it looked like it paid off. The place was full, and I think people were having a good time.
Well, the championships in the NHL in the last 5-6 years, 2 in South Florida, 2 in Tampa Bay, Colorado, Vegas. You get markets like that, and that's where players want to play, and that's where they sign. And we feel like Salt Lake is the next chapter in a destination spot in the National Hockey League, and we're already seeing it.
You want to get to our Monday morning power play coming up?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get to the top 5 stories going into the week for the Mammoth and going into 2026. Mike and I will give you ours. As always, we encourage you to leave in the YouTube comments or leave us a 5-star rating on Apple and pop them in there. Your top 5 stories of the week coming up next right here on Mammoth Daily.
And now, time for the Monday morning power play.
We're back at it here on Mammoth Daily, and it's time for our Monday morning power play. Adrian and I are going to snap it around the offensive zone on the PP and see what comes of it. The power play, it's connected a few times here, Adrian. Mammoth's starting to get it going a little bit better than it was throughout the month of November. Still a long way to go on that front. But our power play has been scintillating all throughout the year, Adrian. So why don't you start after a clean face-off win by yours truly? You've got it at the point. What's your number one storyline going into this week?
Yeah, I think for the Mammoth, it's play like you do after a loss, after a win. It's been a Utah team that's struggled to string together some wins since October. They had that great win on Long Island on New Year's Day. You're hoping to take it into New Jersey against a team that you've never beaten before, but you played pretty close, and we just didn't get the game that we saw on Long Island on Thursday. Utah is 3-7-1 after a win since October, and they're 0-3 since their 7-game winning streak, going for a 3-game winning streak. But we've seen some great bounce backs. We said it. After the Vegas game, they responded with the win against the Rangers. After the San Jose game, they lost 6-3. They beat Anaheim 7-0. They lost that tough game to Florida, came back and beat Seattle. Lost to Boston, beat Detroit. Lost to New Jersey, beat Winnipeg. Lost to Nashville, beat the Islanders. So they've been great at bouncing back after games that you don't feel very good about not getting a result. But after a game like the Islanders, you're really hoping for a little more against the New Jersey Devils. You're down 2-0 in the first period after a pretty good start. Playing catch up against a team that doesn't give up leads. For me, that was a tough one on Saturday.
Mine is going to be based off of yours. I'm going to kind of expand it and draw it out a little bit more. So you're saying follow-up wins with good performances. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm just going to say streaks. Streaks is my storyline, one of our 5 for this Monday morning power play. I really think at some point this year, the Mammoth are going to have to win 5 in a row. And I mean, beyond their 7-game win streak earlier in the year. And I just picked 5. It's a bit of an arbitrary number, but you look at the teams that have all of a sudden crept above Utah in the standings. Teams like Seattle, who Utah has beat this year. Nashville, who you're 1-1 against. San Jose, who you're 1-1 against. 1-1-1, I should say. Those teams that Utah feels, I think Mammoth fans feel, I feel like Utah is better than those groups. Like if Utah lined up against Seattle, Nashville, St. Louis, San Jose, I feel very confident in our group's ability to win one game. But nonetheless, they've crept above Utah in the standings. And most of those teams, the 3 teams I mentioned at first, Seattle, Nashville, San Jose, they've all had a 3 or a 4-game win streak within the last month or the last couple of weeks here. Seattle's has come recently. Hold on, I'm getting a knock at my door here.
Oh, we love these.
Hi there. Can you come back later? Maybe like 2:00? Or you know what? Can maybe 3? 3, is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
That's the first visitor knocking on your hotel room door on Mammoth Daily this year that hasn't been from the broadcast team. I'm like, who's it going to be?
That's how you know this is not staged. This is not diagrammed or anything like that. It was just one of our friendly housekeeping staff. This is a little embarrassing. I still don't fully exactly know what turn down service is. Like someone came in the other day, like what just happened.
Yep.
And they're like, turn down service. Like, would you like some turn down service? And I'm like, I'm about to turn it down is what I'm about to do. But I think it means just like flipping the pillows or something. I don't know. I'm just a small town boy in the big city. But let me go back to let's get this train back on the rails here. Streaks. Seattle, Nashville, San Jose, they've all had a 3 or a 4-game win streak at some point recently. Seattle's has come within their last couple games. They're on a point streak as we sit here and record this now. The Mammoth, to your point, Adrian, have had trouble stacking wins together since the start of the year when they won 7 in a row. We saw last year St. Louis win 12 in a row to catapult past the entire field and basically rip a playoff berth away from Calgary, Vancouver, and Utah, the teams that were right there struggling to get in for the last several months of the year. If the Mammoth want to cement their place in a wild card spot or at least gain an upper hand on these teams, at some point, I think you're going to have to win 5 in a row. That's my number. 3, 4, okay, great. But it's not simply going to be good enough to win 1 out of every 2 the rest of the way. Going 500 is not going to get it done, as I think we all know. And coming down the stretch here. You might have to win 5 in a row without Logan Cooley. You might not be able to wait that long because the Western Conference is crowded, and it's time to start stacking wins for this team. The runway is beginning to shorten, and I have some more kind of outlook calculations we can get to a little bit later, but at some point you're going to have to win 4 or 5 or 6 games in a row. And on the flip side of that, you have to minimize the losing streaks. We hear that about good teams, right? Every team is going to experience losses. Every team is going to lose over the course of an 82-game season. The good teams are the ones that cut their losses at 1 or 2 in a row and don't let 1 become 2. Don't let 2 become 3 and 4. So streaks and momentum is going to be incredibly important this week, but the rest of the way for Utah.
And for the Mammoth, they roll off a 5-game winning streak. In this climate right now in the Western Conference, you're going to be comfortably in one of those wild card spots. But as you said, there's going to be teams that get hot, as we've seen from Seattle and Nashville. Number 3, I'm going to stay along the same lines, Mike. The schedule. We've been talking about how challenging that schedule has been. And now for the rest of the NHL, they're going to have the schedule that Utah has had in the first half of the season. And now it's an opportunity to take advantage of it. After tonight, 24 of the final 39 games are going to be at home. But not only that, Utah's going to have games played on 1 day's rest, 2 days rest. This year, they're 17, 13, and 2 when playing on 1 or 2 days rest. They're 2-6-1 playing on a back-to-back or on 4 days rest. The rest of the way, 37 of their 40 games are going to be played on 1 day's rest or 2 days rest. So not crazy back-to-backs, only have 4 of those left. But, you're playing every other day. You have 2 days off. You're still in your rhythm, and in that rhythm, the Mammoth are 17, 13, and 2. So that's a schedule. You got home games, back-to-backs cut off, and you played the majority of your road games. So that's my number 3. Schedule's now favorable, so let's take advantage of it.
All right, let's go down to the goal line spot here. And my next storyline for this week is going to be 1-goal games. And we've been talking about this on the radio broadcast a lot because the Mammoth have not been good in 1-goal games. And they've been playing against a bunch of teams that have been good in 1-goal games. New Jersey was one of those teams. The Islanders were one of those teams as well. But it's not just 1-goal games. It's close games. The Mammoth, as we sit right now and record this, have the second worst points percentage in the league in games decided by 1 goal. Now, I think as hockey fans, a lot of us know there are a lot of quote-unquote 1-goal games that might finish as 2-goal games because of an empty netter. So the stat can be a little misleading at times. So I'm going to expand it to just games that are close. A couple games back, Utah had 7 goals against the New York Islanders. And we've seen games like that from this group before where it's a relatively easy night. There's no such thing as an easy game in the NHL, but it's a relatively easy night compared to the closer, more hard-fought games. Utah got out in front, and once they made it, 2-1, 3-1, they just kept scoring, and goals just were falling in by the third period. Mammoth this year have 5 games, where they've scored 6 goals or more. And they've all been relatively easy wins. You got the Islanders game, Anaheim, St. Louis, Minnesota, San Jose. 6 or more in those games. If you take away the goals in those games, Utah, on a per-game basis, is the lowest scoring team in the league. Now, that's not fair, right? You can't take away your best games and derive an indictment from the stats that follow. But the reason I bring that up is because this team, I feel when the going's good, it's really good. And finding that secondary plan when things are more difficult is the next evolution of this team. This group was really good in 1-goal games to start the year, but they've struggled mightily recently. And they tend to struggle against these big, heavy teams that like to play lower scoring games. I'm talking about, the LA Kings of the world, the Boston Bruins of the world, the New Jersey Devils of the world. New Jersey, not a big team up front, but they got big guys on the back end like Dougie Hamilton and Brendan Dillon. you look at the 5 heaviest teams in the league, and this is from Elite Prospects, which isn't exactly perfect, but the 5 heaviest teams in the league, they have listed as LA, Toronto, Boston, Ottawa, and Dallas. Utah is 0-5 against those teams, the 5 heaviest teams in the league. I just think when the game is heavy, when you have a team that packs it in and it's going to be a tighter game, those are the games that this team has to start winning like they were at the start of the year. The Mammoths seem to match up well when teams are aggressive and like to push the pace and like to open things up a little bit more, because that's when Utah can find pockets in the offensive zone. They can get chances off the rush. But when teams stay above them and pack it in, that's when this Mammoth group has to continue to find a variety of ways to score and to compete in these games. And they've struggled to do that in the last couple weeks.
And it seems like it's the same game every single time, right? We've seen that New Jersey game. We saw it against Calgary, right? It's just kind of felt coming off a big win against a team that's a challenge, and it just doesn't get off the ground.
And I think one more thing on this for me is I think this is in a similar vein to Utah's struggles at 6-on-5. When there's less space, when your opposition is packing it in, when you have to score off a dirty play, the Mammoths still do not have a 6-on-5 goal in their history dating back to last year. Like, we played New Jersey last game. They have 4 this year. The Islanders have 5 this year. Like most other teams can get at least a 6-on-5 goal here or there. Mammoth have 0 dating back to last season. And I think a big part of that is just because when things are open, this group's skill can dominate a game. And we've seen that at times. But when things close, when space constricts, you have to find a way you have to have a plan B, is the way I phrase it, or I've heard it phrased. And I don't know if Utah's plan B has been good enough the last couple months.
All right, my number 5, final one on our Monday morning power play, Karel Vejmelka. Mike, how about Veggie? 17, 11, and 2. He's won 5 of his last 7 starts. Second in the NHL behind Scott Wedgwood now in wins, as the Avs picked up a victory at Carolina on Saturday night. But when he's in there, the team just has confidence. And he plays games like he did on Thursday, where he stops 10 shots in the first 10 minutes. And Karel Vejmelka has been a difference maker for the Mammoth, like we talked about with Jacob Markstrom, and performances against Utah, Igor Shesterkin, who we're going to see tonight. But Veggie's been he's been a star, and they really missed him against Colorado and Nashville. I thought they would have won that game for sure on Monday night against Nashville with Karel Vejmelka, as we watched some highlights from that game against the Florida Panthers back on December 10th.
Do we know when the Czechs are announcing their Olympic roster?
I believe it's got to be before tomorrow. January 6th is the deadline. And Mike, there was an article on NHL.com earlier this year projecting the goaltenders, and Veggie was listed as also receiving votes guy, but not a sure thing in their top 3. And for me, you got a guy who's second in the NHL in wins. I think you revisit things from maybe an initial thought.
Well, you got to think Dostal is on there from Anaheim. Mrazek has seniority as well. And who else am I missing? We talked about this list on our broadcast.
Dobish from Montreal is another one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's competitive. I think it wasn't a great November. Wasn't the best start of the year for Karel, but I think he's been really good recently. I think every night he's given Utah a chance to win and then some. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but the Islander game, like without Veggie in the first period, the way he was kicking, like the Mammoth are probably down 2-0, and chasing that game. He's been really good. I keep going back to this kind of schism in the schedule. He's been really good ever since he was pulled December 1st against San Jose. And since then, I think he's been the Karel Vejmelka that we kind of know and love, the one that got that signed to that 5-year extension last March, and the one that Utah needs him to be a playoff team. And he's been a bell cow. Like, it's been him pretty much the entire way. And we've seen Vitek for a couple games in a row, and Karel was a little banged up around the holiday break. But I still think that this is a team that goes as far as Karel Vejmelka takes him. 904 save percentage ever since December 1st. Was that game on December 1st? Like, can I trim that? Okay, so let me. So I can update this here because it'll make his numbers even better. So if you take away the game in which he was pulled, he actually has a 911 save percentage after he was pulled against San Jose. The only time he's been pulled all year. So he's been much better. He's been much better since that date. And I still think that he's a guy, if Utah ends up being a wild card team, he's a guy that other teams aren't necessarily excited to see in net in a first round playoff series, because in 6 or 7 games he could easily steal you one that you don't deserve.
So there you go. It's your Monday morning power play. Top 5 stories of the week heading into the week. When we come back, third period, I can tell you what turn down service is, what Mike has forthcoming in the room later today. You all are going to love this. And Mike's got some under the hood nuggets for us. Haven't been under the hood the entire Christmas vacation. Haven't even turned the light on in the garage, Mike. So we're going to go out to the garage and look under the hood. Coming up in just a little bit right here. Third period next on Mammoth Daily.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Wrapping things up here on our Monday morning power play edition of Mammoth Daily. And Adrian, I know I could see you looking down while we were recording that power play. You were clearly researching what turn down service is. This has been explained to me before, and I'm pretty sure I have like a general idea. Is it not just like, it's like half housekeeping? Like, they come in, they kind of like, they give you, they don't do like the full cleanup, but they just kind of freshen everything up a little bit. That's my guess. Is that what it is?
So it's a luxury hotel amenity that involves preparing a guest room for sleep while they're out. It typically happens between 5 and 9 p.m. And it may include removing extra pillows and folding down the top sheet in the duvet, clearing clutter, removing trash and putting away clothes, replacing used towels, closing the curtains, turning off the lights and dimming the lighting. When you come back after a game and the room has the sleep lighting, leaving a treat. They could place a chocolate or mint on the pillow or bedside table. They could even draw you a bath, play soft music, or leave you a breakfast menu, Mike. So,
well, I can tell you that when I would travel with the Madison Mallards in the Northwoods Wooden Bat collegiate baseball league, and we stayed at the chalet in, where would this have been? It must have been somewhere along the western shores of Lake Michigan, maybe Kenosha, Wisconsin. I can assure you the chalet did not have turn down service. So we're not at the chalet anymore. We're in the big city now, where they actually did leave a treat. You're going to think this is ridiculous. I don't know what turn down service is, but I asked for a humidifier. So I have this like vaporizer in here that's just emitting these vapor clouds to try and soothe my throat so that I'll be ready to call these goals coming up tonight. But yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that info, Adrian. Now everybody can make fun of me for not knowing what turn down service is.
Honestly, I'd never heard of it before this. But
use your Ritz points every once in a while, Adrian. Use your Ritz-Carlton points and cash those in. Get yourself a nice stay.
I thought I did stay at nice places, but never had turn down service.
While we had break, I booked myself a trip for over the Olympics. So that is in the books now. I'm fired up about that. I'll get to some more of that later, but yeah, starting to kind of get those wheels in motion as well. We got a long way to go before the Olympic break, but with all the Olympic announcements and seeing what Clayton Keller and Oli Mata were going to be doing coming up in February, I was like, you know what? I kind of also want to take a trip abroad. So yeah, some exciting stuff there. Exciting stuff for the Mammoth. 15 games here in the month of January, Adrian, including a 7-game homestand coming up after we finish up this trip with a game tonight at MSG. How big do you think this 7-game stretch is, Adrian? Because I know we've been talking about the schedule opening up, but a big part of that is these 7 games coming up where last year this team kind of missed an opportunity during their January 7-game homestand.
They did, and it was pretty similar in terms of scheduling as well, Mike. 5 of the 7 teams on this homestand are below the playoff line right now, and we had some teams come in during that was it a 6-gamer last January, like Columbus, like Pittsburgh, like the Rangers. Montreal was struggling, that Utah struggled with. Again, you got to go play the games. You've got the schedule that's now favorable, so just as much as taking advantage of them, and I'm excited to see the Mammoth in January based on what we've just told you. The home games, the lack of travel, the other teams are going to be playing their second half schedule grind. So big opportunity, and you've gotten through the tough part of it. And Bill Armstrong has said, we heard it on our broadcast on Hockey Night in Utah on the radio, as well as on Hockey Night in Utah on TV over the weekend. Bill saying, this is, again, we just hoped to be around 500. Looking at what we did in the offseason, looking at the schedule when it came out, this is exactly where we'd hope to be, in a position to make a move come right now. So now it's time to make a move.
Yeah, well, and that's the part of it, right? Like you accomplished the part A, which is be in the mix, but now you have to put yourself in the mix, and now you have to start winning games at a better clip. And last year it was a 7-game homestand. Utah was 3-4-0 in that 7-game homestand in January. They were 5 points out when the homestand started. They were 6 points out when it ended. And so they lost a little bit of ground, but they lost a lot of time too. And so when you lose ground and you lose time, that compounds. Mammoth, after or including the game tonight, have 40 games left on the schedule. You mentioned earlier, 24 of those are home, 16 are on the road, including the one tonight. We talk about, Adrian, and I know this because we've heard it from different minor league coaches over the course of our careers. Everybody wants to go, we want to win 2 out of 3 at home and then 500 on the road. And that should put you in the playoffs, right? If the Mammoth do that, if the Mammoth win 2 out of 3 at home, and if they win 500, if they go 500 on the road the rest of the way, that puts them at 89 points for the year. Now, there has not been a team in the last 5 full seasons, so I'm not counting the 2 COVID-shortened years. In the last 5 years, there has not been a team that has made the playoffs in the Western Conference with fewer than 90 points. Again, Utah on pace for 89 if they do those 2 things I mentioned. Last team to have 90 points and make the postseason was Colorado back in 2018, 2019. So you're getting to a point now. The reason I bring this up is because you're getting to a point now where the Mammoth are going to have to start doing better than 500 on the road and winning 2 out of 3 at home. And that goes back to the win streak that I was talking about earlier. At some point, you got to put a really good run of 2 weeks together here, because the runway shortens drastically. And if you're in that 89 point range, which Utah is on pace for close to that, if they do what I said, that you might be in, but odds are someone will pass you by in what is right now a really mushy middle of the West.
And nobody saw St. Louis last year come out of nowhere. It was Utah, Calgary, Vancouver, all battling for that final spot. And then St. Louis came shot out of a cannon and won 12 straight. The team that scares me is San Jose because they just don't stop. And they got blown out by Tampa Bay at home on Saturday, but they have erased some 2-goal deficits, some 3-goal deficits. They've blown leads. They've come back to win. For me, like San Jose, Nashville, Seattle's played good in spurts. You have to figure Nashville, especially San Jose, after their tough start, those are two teams to watch for. And Seattle just keeps winning. John Forsman just keeps yelling, "That's Kraken hockey, baby!" over the last 3 weeks or so here after they had that rough spot that where they came to Salt Lake and got beat by the Mammoth.
Yeah, and the Kraken are in a good spot because you look at the teams below them in the standings, and the Kraken have played fewer games than all those teams. So they have games in hand on LA and Utah and San Jose and Nashville. I think Nashville is the team that scares me the most out of the group that's in front of Utah right now, just because the Preds have better goaltending than, as I'm looking at the list, almost every team they're competing with for a wild card spot. You could make it a wash with LA. Darcy Kemper's been great. But like I would take UC Saros over pretty much all these goaltenders, I think. And even some of the goaltenders in who are in the top 3 of their respective divisions. So if the Preds can figure it out, which that's a big if, because they were not very good last year and they seem beatable this year. Mammoth let a game slip away. But just because of the goaltending, I think Nashville's the one that scares me the most out of this group. But it's a tough group. Like there are redeeming qualities to basically all these teams. I think your point about San Jose is great. They strike me as a group that just doesn't know any better. Like when they're losing, they don't know any better. It's like, yeah, we might as well just score 2. They don't know they're supposed to be done for the night, right? And then when they're up 2 goals, they don't necessarily have that killer instinct of how to close games and finish games that a lot of these perennial playoff teams, they have that ingrained instinct because they've learned it over time. And so I think San Jose is just a group that they don't know any better, so you never know what you're going to get, and that could be scary as well. Maybe not the most consistent, but on a per-night basis, very scary.
And Steven Stamkos for Nashville, Mike, we saw him take over a game in Salt Lake, and that's what he's been doing during the course of the last 5 weeks, where Nashville has been 500 or better in every single week. He leads the NHL with 7 game-winning goals, and 6 of them have come since December.
I'm glad you brought up Stamkos because that's going to lead me to talking about Dylan Guenther a little bit here. I mean, Stamkos obviously has a famous one-timer. Nobody shoots more of one-timers than Dylan Guenther does. He leads the league in one-timers attempted and one-timers on goal, in one-timer goals. He scored a couple against the New York Islanders the other day. But he's on pace to potentially be Utah's first 40-goal scorer in history. Clayton Keller led the way with 30 last year. Guenther is on pace for a little bit shy of 40 right now with 20 on the season. He's the fastest Utah player to ever get to 20 goals. 10 goals in 13 games without Logan Cooley, Adrian. And I don't know if you have any theories on this. I've talked to the rest of our broadcast crew about it. We asked Bear about it a little off camera. And just from what I observe, I feel like Guenther is more straight line without Logan Cooley. Him and Cooley try to make a lot of plays, and sometimes it's incredible hockey magic. But Guenther is maybe a little bit more direct in the offensive zone without Cooley when he's playing with Barrett Hayton and Lawson Krause. And I feel like we've seen a bunch of goals where Guenther has capitalized off a really strong forecheck from that line, creating a turnover, winning a battle, and then finding Guenther in the soft areas. And we saw it twice against the Islanders.
Gosh, it's just the consistency too. And it seemed like his October, November, December was a little quieter than last year because he didn't have the 2-goal games that he had last year. He wasn't scoring in bunches. He hasn't gone more than 3 games without a point this year. He hasn't gone more than 2 games without a point in the last 2 months. Just the consistency here in his second full season, I think, is another huge thing that he's done to have success. And you look at a hat trick to put him on a 40-goal pace to wrap up the first half. And I think a bigger second half could be in store for him, because just looking at his December, coming into January, he's tied for the NHL lead in goals since December 10th.
Well, I'll go back even a little bit further. I'm going to go to the start of December. We mentioned Steven Stamkos earlier. There are 3 guys that have more goals than Dylan Guenther since the start of December. Stamkos is one of them. You want to guess the other 2? It's not hard.
Nathan McKinnon?
Yep.
McDavid?
Yep. Pretty good company. McKinnon, McDavid, and a future Hall of Famer Stamkos are the 3 guys that have more goals than Dylan Guenther since the start of December. Now, this is just a month stretch, right? A lot of guys can get hot in a month. But Guenther has been doing this without Logan Cooley, without your most dynamic offensive player. And he's been doing it at a time where Utah needs it, because the Mammoth are lacking that spark offensively that Cooley brings.
Yeah, it's been great. And Cooley, we're getting close, Mike. You have to figure we're about to the halfway point of being without Logan Cooley here. And you got a busy January, as you said, and then you got February, the Olympic break, and hopefully then for 92 coming back.
Yeah, that'll be a big spark. You need to continue to win though without him. You got to continue to make up ground without him.
Yeah.
You can't wait till after the Olympics to try and make your charge. That's going to be too late. So, big month ahead, as we keep saying, for this Mammoth group, and a big game tonight for Utah at Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. It's going to be 7:00 Eastern, 5:00 Mountain puck drop. So we'll talk to you here in a little bit. And AD, boy, it's good to be back, huh? Good to be back in the flow.
Great to be back. Oh, good 55-minute show to bring everybody back from Christmas break. So hopefully that's what they wanted.
We have our Tuesday mailbag coming up tomorrow. So be sure to submit any questions that you might have for that. If we can't get to it on this week's mailbag, we'll try and get to them down the line as well. Our mailbag episodes are always a ton of fun. But remember to submit those questions on YouTube or find us on Twitter at Mike_Folta. He is at 801 Adrian Denny. And yeah, we'll talk to everybody tonight on Hockey Night in Utah as the Mammoth look to get right and win 2 out of 3 on the trip. You win 2 out of 3, Adrian? You're laughing on the plane ride back.
That's it. It's a great trip.